A cosmic cube transformed Steve Rogers, Captain America, into the ultimate Hydra sleeper agent. And after months of scheming and manipulation, the country is under the control of Hydra. Earth's most powerful heroes are stranded beyond Earth's planetary defense shield at the mercy of the Chitauri invasion. Or they're trapped inside the impenetrable dark force bubble that currently envelops New York City. The handful of heroes that remain must work from the shadows to oppose Captain America's sinister regime, or face dire consequences. This is the number one comics podcast, and this is Secret Empire. Welcome to the number one comics podcast. I am your host, Jonah. With me is Bill. This is the podcast dedicated to the review and discussion of first issues.
Yeah.
And as you can tell from that intro, or from the title when you clicked on this, we are talking about Secret Empire. I will probably call this Secret Invasion more than once as we're talking about this, because that name, for whatever, Secret Empire just does not stick in my head like Secret Invasion has a tendency to do. So, welcome. We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Yep. Secret Empire number one, published by Marvel Comics. Cover date, July of 2017. Cover price, $4.99. Writer, Nick Spencer. Artist, Steve McNiven. Now, this was Marvel's big event of 2017, right? Marvel, they can't seem to go very long without having some massive status quo altering, world shattering event. I get it.
Right.
Some events have been enjoyable to me and others not so much. It was, it was largely event fatigue that killed my interest in comics back in like the early 2010s.
Yeah.
And I wound up taking like almost a decade-long hiatus. So I was not even into comics when this book had come out. Now, since getting back into comics, I've tried to go back and catch up on a lot of things that I'd missed. This included events like Shadowland, Avengers versus X-Men, Civil War II, which some of those I regret even wasting the time on.
Right.
And there's still a lot of gaping holes as well that, may or may not ever be filled just based on my interest or from hearing good things about it, etc. As an example, like Fear Itself, Infinity Wars, King in Black. There's a lot of those that just, they don't interest me necessarily. This event didn't interest me until I'd read Steve Rogers' Captain America, which we had talked about on this show. It was last year that I'd read through that series, and it was still to this day remains like one of the most controversial moments in comics. That series is what sparked my interest in this event. And it ties directly in or leads up to this event. The groundwork for that series was laid even before, really, Steve Rogers' Captain America, and a lot of that stuff I still haven't. I know we talked a bit about that when we discussed the Steve Rogers' Captain America issue, and a lot of that stuff I still haven't necessarily caught up with yet. Now, It was in 2016. There was a miniseries called Avengers Standoff, I think. And it was in that Steve was transformed from the 90-year-old man that he had been into the more youthful, physically better self. But that wasn't the only thing that was transformed about him. He was also turned into a Hydra sleeper agent at that point in time. All of the changes to Steve's character were a manipulation by the Red Skull, who is his big nemesis. And the Red Skull's plan was to bring Hydra to world power and cripple the U.S. government, which, I mean, if you're a Hydra guy, that's a pretty solid concept. Now, here's one of the big reasons for the event fatigue and why it would hit me like so hard back in the day. According to League of Comic Geeks, This particular event spanned about 78 issues.
Wow.
The 10 or so issues in the main event, counting the 0 issue, and then just that many tie-ins. That is a ridiculous number of tie-ins.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man, Deadpool, Doctor Strange, Thunderbolts, Champions, Captain Marvel, the list of the titles that, you know, tying it in goes on and on. I get it if it's a big event.
Yeah.
But think of what that does to like someone's pocketbook, right? If they're collecting, maybe they're collecting 1 or 2 comics, okay, 5 or 6, whatever it may be.
Right.
And then all of a sudden here's this event, but books that you're not typically reading, now you've got to pick up to stay caught up with it, or because you don't want to miss anything, whatever the reason is, it can be crippling.
Yeah.
And what I'd found with a lot of the previous events, especially with a lot of the tie-ins, is a lot of them were so like on the fringe of the event itself that it was a waste of a tie-in. Mm-hmm. Some of them were tying in only, peripherally, if even that. So yeah. I didn't, I didn't really care for a lot of those tie-ins.
Yeah.
And that's what drove me out of it back in the day. All right. Let's get into the issue itself, starting with the cover. Reading glasses on because I'm getting old. The cover features a slew of Marvel characters. We have a Cap/Red Skull mashup at the top center, an alien warship at the 1 o'clock position. And actually, I can't remember. I'm not looking at it right this second if that's alien warship or if that's a Hydra warship. That might be a Hydra ship.
Yeah.
Along the right side, we have Human Torch, Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, among a few others. Rocket Raccoon at the 5 o'clock position. Some gnarly tentacles along the bottom. Spider-Man smack dab in the center. Wolverine in the 7 o'clock position. Right above him is Chick Thor, Storm, and who I presume is Ironheart. Above them at the top left is a SHIELD helicarrier and a fleet of jets. Overall, the cover's gorgeous. It does an excellent job conveying that this is going to be a world-encompassing event. I like that in a cover. Mm-hmm. The cover was done by Mark Brooks. In typical Marvel fashion, there are 6 variant covers as well, which actually is not a lot considering.
Right.
Today it'd be like 12 and 6 of those would be blind bags or something. Bill, what are your thoughts on this cover?
I think the cover is absolutely gorgeous. The cover alone would get me to buy it.
Right.
I think. Now, the thing that is both good and bad with that is that I love it when a cover has all these people on there so I can get an idea of who's going to be involved.
Right.
The thing I hate about that is when they're not in the issue that I pick up.
Yes. A real quick story about that, like, variant covers drive me nuts anyway, especially when it's featuring a character who's not in the book.
Right.
So there was a Deadpool one shot for like April Fool's Day. They came out recently, well, on April Fool's Day. Mm-hmm. And it featured him, and he was wearing like kind of on him, or he was wearing like in his armor, but it was like Death's Head.
Oh,
Death's Head's not in the book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, get out of here.
Well, and I know what your thoughts are on Death's Head anyway.
I love Death's Head.
Yeah.
I almost picked it. So. You put. I still almost picked it up just because he was on the cover.
Right.
But anyway, let's get into the issue itself. We open up in a town called Greensboro. Jason McAllister is getting dropped at school by his older brother, Brian. Jason is bummed because he thinks one of the kids stole his Captain America lunchbox. Jason runs into class just in time for the class's morning Hail Hydra salute. That day's lesson, includes American history and the architect of the U.S. Super Soldier Program. Jason's answer to the question about the architect of that Super Soldier Program was Abraham Erskine. Another student answers correctly that it was actually Arnim Zola. The teacher educates Jason that his answer was based on old editions of the textbooks, which had been burned. or as that was all part of what was called the Great Illusion. With the help from Captain America, the country has awoken from a great dream. The teacher then has the class state the 3 Hydra guidelines: trust authority, punish weakness, and report threats. This is when one of the other students raises their hand to report a threat: Jason's brother, Brian. Speaking of Brian, he rushes into his house after dropping his younger brother off at school. He's about to hurl. His jaw dislocates like a snake's as he pukes out his younger brother's missing Captain America lunchbox, or at least a replacement for it. It seems that Brian can gestationally materialize items. I don't know. That's just what I gathered from that. He barely has time to start cleaning up his mess when Hydra agents are kicking in his door to arrest him for being an inhuman that failed to register with the local observation committee. We cut to Las Vegas, where a young man named Ray Sean has just arrived. Seeing a giant Hail Hydra sigil in the terminal of the train station, he realizes how much this world has changed. In space, a distress signal from Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, goes out. In this message, she states their greatest threat has come from within. She is unable to get communications to the ground from Earth's orbit, and wave after wave of an invading army keeps attacking. As Carol urges anyone that receives her message to aid her, it's cut off by another wave of attacking Chitauri aliens. This is when we cut to our title page, which features the synopsis that we opened up the show with at the very beginning, as well as the pool of creators and a breakdown of our core cast. This cast consists of Hydra Command, which is Captain America, Madam Hydra, Baron Zemo, Viper, Kraken, Arnim Zola, Hive, Gorgon, and Dr. Faustus. We also have Avengers, which includes Thor, Deadpool, Scarlet Witch, Vision, Taskmaster, Black Ant, and Superior Octopus. Primary targets: Black Widow, Hawkeye, Hulk, which is actually it's the Amadeus Cho Hulk, Wasp, Spider-Man, Vision, Ironheart, The Thing, Giant Man, Ant-Man, and an AI version of Tony Stark. The Exiled, Captain Marvel, and Doctor Strange. Now, I've clearly been out of comics for a while at this point because some of these characters, or at least these versions of these characters, I was not familiar with them at all.
Right.
I was like, why is Tony Stark a hologram? Why is, why is Amadeus Cho the Hulk? Why is, who is, wasn't the spider person? The
Superior Octopus.
Yeah, who is Superior Octopus?
Yeah.
Who is Black Ant? Like, I didn't know a lot of these characters.
Right.
Anyway, back to the story. In Vegas, Ray Sean is being chased by Hydra agents. His pursuit is being watched. Amadeus Cho catches up with the fleeing Ray Sean. Ray Sean tells him that he was supposed to meet someone from the underground, which Cho just so happens to be with. Amadeus Cho transforms into the Hulk and smashes his fist into the ground, which sends the pursuing Hydra agents flying. The other members of the underground reveal themselves. Ray Sean has brought something to them in his backpack. But before we learn what it is, a trio of killer Hydra robots called Dreadnoughts are approaching. The underground heroes quickly flee in a Fantasticar. We then cut to Denver. A big kaiju-type monster looking to feed on the city's population is running amok. However, Captain America is standing in his way. Cap tells the monster to stand down, but the monster laughs at him, so Cap calls in the Avengers. Thor, who is going by Odinson, Vision, Scarlet Witch, Deadpool, Taskmaster, Black Ant, and Superior Octopus attack and take the monster down. A stat about crime being down 75% since the Hydra takeover is mentioned in a newsreel. We also have market highs and more. There is even a blurb about Hydra High Command, or the High Council, meeting to discuss a number of items, including a quote-unquote day of reckoning, in which 20 people convicted of treason are set to be executed. We cut to that council meeting. Dr. Faustus briefs Cap on some changes to the fluoride in the water, creating nearly undetectable levels of mind-altering substances. This is how they were able to bend the general population to their will, essentially. Like, because before that, when we had the classroom scene with the teacher, and I'm like, how did this all happen that quickly? Right? That is how that happened. Kraken gives an intelligence update, and Madam Hydra states that they've opened up 2 detention facilities for holding Inhumans. Zola wants to discuss what happened in Vegas, which Cap wasn't even aware of. Zola fills him in on the underground evading dreadnoughts with a high-value target and destroying city property in the process. The incident amassed 50 million views online before the state censors took it down. The discussion turns to how to squash the underground. The council is questioning Cap's methods, which could be perceived as a weakness. This includes the continual delays of the Day of Reckoning that had just been previously mentioned. Back out in Nevada, the underground is taking Rayshon to their headquarters. There, the young heroes are greeted by Ben, Grimm the Thing, Black Widow, and Hawkeye. Hawkeye is not happy that the group went out on a quote-unquote supply run. Widow and Hawkeye don't trust that Rayshon isn't a spy. Rayshon pleads to them that he's not a spy, but rather he has a flash drive in his bag with files on it belonging to Dr. Selvig. We last discussed him when we reviewed Steve Rogers' Captain America. He was the guy in the ship that Captain America was saving from Baron Zemo, and that's when he said the whole Hail Hydra thing. Mm-hmm. The flash drive was given to Rayshon by Rick Jones. Hawkeye pauses and then orders that Rayshon be taken to the drunk. Speaking of the drunk, we cut to Steve Rogers having dinner and a bottle of wine with old-ass Sharon Carter. She doesn't have an appetite and has barely touched her food. Sharon goes on to explain it's because Steve is Hydra, a fascist terrorist who has betrayed his own country and betrayed her. Steve tries to explain that it isn't that simple. While he may have lied to her about a lot, he never lied about how much he loved her. Sharon replies that if he really loved her, he'd let her go. Steve tells her that it isn't safe, and that in time, he hopes she can see the good that they can do together, and he hopes she would consider staying. Steve believes they're so close to a stronger, safer world. Sharon corrects him that it isn't the case, because at the core, the entire idea is corrupted. She goes on to say that the real Steve Rogers would know that. Steve reassures her that he is the real Steve Rogers. Sharon asks him to prove it and spare Rick Jones. We cut to Rick Jones. He's in a prison cell. He's singing. Steve, as Captain America, visits him. Cap asks Rick to tell him who he gave the stolen Hydra files to. Rick deflects the question, changing the subject. Cap warns he doesn't want to see people he cares about suffer or die. But Cap isn't the only one that matters, and he can't be seen doing any special favors. If he doesn't hold himself to the same principles as everyone else, then all of it collapses under the weight of hypocrisy. Steve tells Rick that if he won't at least give up the name, at least renounce the act. And even if Rick doesn't mean it, Cap he needs to hear Rick Jones say the words, "Hail Hydra." Rick won't do it. As Cap walks away, Rick assures Cap he can beat whatever Hydra has done to him, and Rick won't lose hope. Rick calls out that Cap is still his hero. We catch back up to Ray Sean with the Resistance. Giant Man is showing him to the drunk and explaining their base once belonged to an organization called the Pantheon. Giant Man begins to warn Ray Sean about the temperaments of the one called the drunk. Ant-Man is on his way out of visiting the drunk, and it doesn't seem that the conversation went very well. Ant-Man declares this is the worst gig ever, and he's been to prison twice. The drunk is actually a non-corporeal AI version of Tony Stark. Ray Sean hands the drive over, though Tony doesn't seem to be in a rush to take a look at it. Ray Sean says that the info on that drive could fix Captain America. Tony responds that Cap isn't a clone, and he's not being mind-controlled. Each of these revelations have resulted in massive casualties. Tony warns Ray Sean they're no longer superheroes, but rather just fugitives trying to survive. Elsewhere, at the base, Hawkeye and Black Widow are watching over the others in a hangar. Widow reassures Hawkeye that he has been responsible for their survival. He found the base, he brought the others there, and he keeps the place running. He's doing a good job. We cut to Captain America paying a visit to Madam Hydra. She seems to be engaged in some sort of a magical fisticuffs with Doctor Strange. Madam Hydra is also known to Cap as Elisa. This is the same woman that we met in Steve Rogers' Captain America #1 as the woman who introduced young Steve and his mom to Hydra. The two sit down to tea and discuss how Steve is torn. If he shows his friend Rick Jones mercy, he'll appear weak to the council. If he kills Rick because the council demands it, then they will know that he is weak. That makes sense, I guess. Okay. Steve recognizes disloyalty in the ranks. Elisa tells him that he's always been the bravest soldier she's ever known. He survived across 2 worlds and nearly a century to bring them there. And he must remember, this is the beginning, as they're seeking more than the nation or even the world. Steve replies, they're seeking the cosmic cube. Elisa goes on to state that it is Steve's destiny to find the cube and to restore their world to what it was, and to put right what was taken from Hydra. Any other concern is simply a distraction. Cap goes live on TV while Rick Jones is led in front of a firing squad. This would be the collapse and vanishing of everything the heroes believed in. For with this event, evil has truly won. As Rick Jones stares down the barrels of the firing squad rifles, his last words are, "Avengers assemble." He's then shot to death. The heroes believe that this would be the worst that it could get, but they're wrong. Their nightmare is just beginning. Hydra has launched an all-out assault on Vegas, and this is to be continued. Bill, thoughts?
Having no prior knowledge or reading any of the tie-ins, anything like that with this, I thought this was a really good story. The story itself, really good. The art was just okay, in my opinion. Other than the cover, I mean, the cover art's fantastic, but don't get me wrong. I think this is something that would make, if Marvel could do good animated movies, like DC does, this would make a great, animated series, animated movie, something like that.
At this point, they could even do it as part of the What If series. What if Cap,
right?
Was a Hydra sleeper agent type thing.
The problem I have with those is that they're too family friendly. I think this needs to be more for a mature audience, kind of thing. But then again, Marvel Studios doesn't have the balls to do that. I really liked it, story wise. It makes me a little bit nervous, and I'll get to that point when we get to the actual review part of it. But you telling me that there's 78 something issues to this,
a lot of tie-ins.
That makes me nervous for anybody that wants to going back. I mean, this did come out in 2017.
Yeah.
anybody wanting to go back and like catch up on old Marvel storylines.
Yeah, the only tie-ins
that
that
gets
I
kinda-
have with it are because some of the Steve Rogers Captain America issues towards the end of that run tie into the event.
Right.
Those are the only ones that I've even read of it.
Okay.
So, it's funny, I've been torn on this event ever since I initially read it. Now, like I said, it takes place kind of during a blind spot of my Marvel collecting experience.
Right.
I did feel like the schools kind of rushing to follow the curriculum was rushed, for lack of a better term. But
Yeah.
I like how it's explained, and it's not implicitly explained here. But people have been like, their minds have been altered with the fluoride or the chemicals that's been added to the water supplies, essentially. I will say that the dude puking up the lunchbox was gross.
Yeah.
And he is an Inhuman, not a mutant, because during this time, Marvel was shoving Inhumans down our throat
Was this
because of the movies, because of the movie properties, right? So Marvel
Right.
not having access to mutants in movies, they were trying to make Inhumans a thing.
so? I was trying to remember, when did Decimation take place? Was that like way before this, or was it kind of?
Decimation would have been a few years before this. I don't remember exactly when that was, but
Because I was trying to remember, like, at this point, where are the mutants at? Is this like kind of a point
I
where
think
they're all
I
depowered?
think for this they kind of like went off and like had their own like little like city that they were living in. That was kind of like, I think it's even mentioned in the book where they live in like San Francisco or something like that, and it's
Oh, okay.
not part of. It's like annexed from like Hydra.
Like its own sovereign nation
Yeah,
kind of thing.
right.
Cool.
But again, it was so weird, and I've never liked the Inhumans.
Yeah, I never got big into them either.
I never understood why Marvel was trying to make us care about Inhumans so much.
The only one I ever really remember following anything was Black Bolt, and I think that was because he was part of the Illuminati.
Right, but the dude doesn't say anything.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to like.
Now, when he did, the one time he did, when was it World War Hulk, when he like spoke and like to like stop the Hulk, that was cool. But yeah, I've never liked the Inhuman. There's two Marvel character concepts or beings I've never cared for: Inhumans and Externals.
Yeah.
And they've tried to like be like, hey, these guys are cool. No, they're not. They're lame. Anyway, that was gross. The other thing that was gross is Rogers essentially elder abuse with Sharon Carter holding her prisoner as he's trying to like make her love him.
Yeah.
That was so weird.
I know fundamentally he's like way older than she is, but
Right.
it still gives me the ick.
Yeah. Doctor Strange and Madam Hydra, they were doing something. I really don't know what they were doing based on this. The heroes, and one of my big issues with this book is the heroes pretty much do nothing in this. There's not a lot of action in this issue.
Yeah.
It's mostly just different conversations going on where Steve Rogers, the Captain America that we've read and loved for decades, is he's now a piece of shit, and he's trying to convince us that he's not the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, like all good dictators do.
Yeah. My favorite scene is his conversation with Rick Jones,
Yeah.
because Rick is essentially the us in this book. He's like the audience, right? And he's like, we'll fix this brainwashing or whatever it is. We'll get back the old Cap. It's kind of everything that we are hoping for or saying.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like a big F you to the audience when he just gets like shredded by the firing squad. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Now, don't worry, audience. Rick Jones does get better. I do like the scene with AI Tony as well, because I guess real Tony is still in a coma in this timeline. So I liked that exchange between him and Rayshawn.
I did like that because I got kind of the feeling that they modeled it after Tony, and they just kind of assumed that he was
Yeah.
like an alcoholic or something like that.
Yep.
So that's why the AI kind of acts that way.
Now, McNiven is the one who is the artist on this. He's also the artist on our next episode, which will be Civil War. What were your thoughts on the art on the interiors? I know you said the cover was gorgeous, but thoughts on the interior art?
I mean, it's good, but it's just good.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it that like really. Normally, I get really hyped when there's like splash pages and even just like simple dialogue. If the artwork looks good, I follow the story super like closely. Now the story portion of it, like the writing on it, is phenomenal, I think.
Yeah.
But there's some portions when I was reading through this, I'm just like, man, I really wish they would have polished this a little bit more. But
yeah,
it's just my opinion. You know,
no, I agree with you. I agree with you. Civil War has this like almost cinematic look to it, as we'll talk about in the next episode, and that's missing from this.
Yeah.
And he's also not really given a lot to do, though, because, again, it's just a bunch of people talking.
Right.
And so
if he'd
been given more to draw, I think it could have been better.
Yeah.
So there were some things I liked about this. There were some things that I disliked. Overall, I think it was good. I didn't get the same sense of excitement putting together the notes for this as I had with with DC KO and with Civil War.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I judge where I'm going to rate a book is like, what feeling do I have as I'm doing that synopsis?
Well, and that's where I was kind of like trying to give it a little bit of grace because it's the first issue of a big event.
Right.
You can't, put all the cards on the table, but at the same time you have to give people enough to be invested.
Yep. Let's talk about what came next. Mm-hmm. So the original Captain America, or a version of him, is restored at the end. Spoiler alert! I'm spoiling what's now almost a 9-year-old story. The Cosmic Cube, aka Kobik, discovered a fragment of the heroic Steve Rogers memories within her. Essentially, Ant-Man helps the Winter Soldier go subatomic. They infiltrate the cube. Bucky was essentially able to reach into Kobik's mind space and literally pull a physical version of the real Steve out. Sounds like weird comic booky stuff, but it works. Kobik undoes the changes that were caused by the Hydra Steve. The two Steves battle. Bad Steve loses and is imprisoned, and all goes back to normal. Essentially, is what came next. Now, there were, like I said, a massive amount of tie-ins to go with this, the main 10 issues. Mm-hmm. Even a 10-issue event, that's a long event.
It is. When you consider it's, a monthly release?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I wasn't reading comics at the time that this had come out, other than like Captain America, Steve Rogers. In this particular issue, I've really not read any of the others in this. Based on my thoughts on this main event so far, I don't know that I'm going to necessarily seek them out. Mm-hmm. Now, I just listened to it today as I was doing some traveling. Marvel executive editor Tom Brevoort was on an episode of the Word Balloon podcast recently, and this event came up, as well as kind of the backlash from fans. Mm-hmm. Which it included like actual death threats from fans, and it caused them to like cancel con appearance events, which is baffling to me. That's so wild to me.
Right.
What some people will get that up in arms about. Yep. Now, he felt the naysayers jumped to the conclusion that Cap was now ruined forever because he was now, quote unquote, a Nazi, which he even called a travesty. They look at, and I see, Hydra and the Nazi Party are two different things.
Yeah.
I don't think he even saw it as like the original Cap was kind of retconned, while the current Cap, since the event, was a new construct with memories. Mm-hmm. But I think fans have different opinions on, was Cap ruined? Was the Cap we have now the original Cap? Is this just a version of new Cap? Your head will spin off your shoulders if you think about it too much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Some fans, I also think, felt that the ending itself of the event may have changed down the road. Like maybe the plans had changed with the whole Cosmic Cube aspect of it. I've never heard one way or another. I mean, it does reversing the whole premise at the last minute, using the cosmic cube to get a version of good Cap back. It is very much like, a Deus Ex Machina. But I don't necessarily think that was the case. And I think that one thing that Brevoort had mentioned is that, or one of my takes is, it was never the plan that Cap was going to be a Hydra agent forever. Like, it was always going to be the plan to eventually, at some point, like at the end of the event, reverse that, bring him back, right? Or undo what had been done. And it's not the first time that we've seen heroes go bad for a period of time.
Right.
Happened with Hal Jordan when he became Parallax.
Yeah.
And then what happened? In the mid-2000s, Hal Jordan came back in Green Lantern Rebirth.
Yeah.
And so I think anyone who thought it was going to be a long-lasting event just, wasn't thinking very clearly.
Right.
In my opinion.
And it's Marvel. Like you said, around this time, like, the event overload was kind of taking place anyway.
And it's funny, especially, you have to also consider, too, like, they're not going to leave Cap a villain for long when they're trying to tie in so much of the movie aspects into the comics and vice versa, right? Could you imagine if someone who saw first Captain America, the first Avenger movie, and they're like, I'm going to go pick up this Cap book called Secret Empire. Right. They're like, wait, what? Again, I think it was foolish for anyone to think that was going to be a long-standing change. Yeah. Overall, this was, like, again, a controversial event. I'm not sure it'll ever be looked on very fondly as a whole, but I think, like you said, it's a solid issue. Yeah. And sadly, I think we talked about it last too, is I don't know that Captain America has ever fully recovered from, in terms of, like, book sales and stories. I don't know that the characters ever fully recovered from the damage that this had done, even though it like undid it.
Right.
I don't know that in fans' eyes that it necessarily had. So,
right.
Anything that you want to add?
I don't think so. I think you pretty much
Let's rate it after reading this first issue. Would you have bought the next, at least read it, skipped it, or would rather have the inhuman ability to vomit lunchboxes?
As lucrative as that sounds, because I could make a killing selling lunchboxes at Des Moines Con.
No one wants lunchboxes that have your spit all
Probably
over them
not.
and
No.
bile.
See, I didn't know the thing about the spin-offs and tie-ins and all that stuff when I wrote this review. I said I would buy the next one with an asterisk that only if I didn't have to also buy 50 plus tie-ins.
Yeah.
So,
and I could be wrong. Maybe it was only 30 tie-ins. I don't know. I was being hyperbolic a little bit. It was a lot. It was a shitload of tie-ins.
With that in mind, hindsight being 2020, I would probably skip the next one knowing that.
So this was an event issue, but it didn't feel like an event to me. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of talking, nothing really holding my attention, and parts of it left me feeling the icks. It just it didn't resonate with me much.
I would probably still, even now knowing that there's all these tie-ins and everything like that, I would still probably read the next one just to see if they actually get into some action.
What I would probably do is, and I've looked for it, like used, I would probably just pick up the trade.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt like this was supposed to be epic, but here's how this made me feel. I feel like this was supposed to be an epic summer blockbuster, but on made for network television budget.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Unlike the first issue of Steve Rogers' Captain America, which we raved about that. Yeah. I mean, as controversial as it was, I thought that was a great first issue.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it had me itching for the next issue to see where it was going. Uh-huh. And this just didn't have that same effect on me.
This left me with more questions than anything. I think it would make me be like, okay, how far back do I have to go to get the story on this?
Right.
If I hadn't read Steve Rogers' Captain America, any of that leading up to this, I probably would have been like you said, I went and saw Captain America, wanted to pick this up.
Yeah, some
Be
poor
like,
schlep
where
going
am
into the
I?
comic book shop and picking this up, not knowing anything going into it. They're going to be like, what
What
is
the
this?
fuck did I just pick
What
up?
is this?
Right. So
Yeah, it's
in that aspect, not one of the greatest number ones we've covered.
no, it's a skip for me. I'm kind of like it's between a skip and maybe read the next. Like if someone like gave me a copy of it, I'd read it, but
Right.
I'm not going to like hunt it down necessarily.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like between skip and maybe a light read. So that's where I land on it.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks you guys for joining us to talk about Secret Empire, not Secret Invasion. Did I call it Secret Invasion at all during this?
I don't think you
even
did.
know. Okay, good. Secret Empire. Be sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. We are part of the Field of Geeks network.
Yep.
So just look up Field of Geeks and you'll find us. Also, you can find us on Facebook at the #1 Comic Podcast. Special thanks to everyone at the Field of Geeks podcast network for making this happen.
Yeah.
Special thanks to Raven X for the music as well. We appreciate that. And we will see you guys next time. Until then, peace.
Later.